Okay, here we go. I found it. Awesome. All right. Well, I got background music here. There we go. All right. Welcome everybody to the regional and local chapter officer meeting today. This training is on business and dining etiquette, and it is led by me. I am Sean Miller, and I'm the Virginia FBLA state reporter, and I am joined today with Gregory. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, hello everyone. I am Gregory Hildrop and I am the state vice president representing the Germana region.
All right. So like I said, thank you so much for joining, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Maybe. Okay. Here we go. So real quickly, we just want to remind everybody of our mission statement. FBLA PBL inspires and prepares students to become community-minded business leaders through relevant career preparation and leadership experience. And that's what all of our trainings are doing. We're preparing our members for their experiences in the business world. And so we're really glad that you're all here, and we hope you learn something. You definitely will learn something, and you definitely will use it in the future. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. Why are we talking about food and eating? This is a natural thing. This is something we do to survive. So why would we need to be talking about it in a business setting? Well, important business is frequently conducted in food-related environments. So the more familiar you are with the rules of etiquette, the better your chance of making a positive impression is. So we're going to start off with arriving at the restaurant. If possible, you should call ahead and make a reservation at the restaurant for your meal. Once your group is together at the restaurant, you don't want to stand around waiting for the table, or if a table becomes available. If someone is waiting for you, as if you've not arrived yet and you're a little bit later, you don't want to be walking around the restaurant searching for that person. Instead, you should tell the dining room host whom you're meeting, and they will direct you to the proper table. If you're running late, go ahead and call the restaurant and describe the group or the person that you are to meet. And the general rule of thumb there is if you're going to be 10 minutes late, you should go ahead and call the restaurant. It's always polite to call the person that you're meeting to, or the host. That way they know, as well as the restaurant will know, that you're going to be a few minutes late. In most cases, if you're in a group setting, you're going to be seated as a group. So you all wait there together until the whole group is there, and then the host will direct you to be seated at the table. The women will go first, and then followed by the men. So you should watch for the host, as they will pull out the most preferred seat for the women. If there are several women, those women may defer to a senior woman, singular woman, for the first seat. Otherwise, the preferred seat will go to the first woman to arrive at the table. So moving on to the introductions, the host will make the introductions in most cases. The host will say something about each person, and then if appropriate, they'll go ahead and say shake hands. And what I mean by if appropriate is, like you will hear many, many, many times throughout this presentation, you should always follow the host. And we say an appropriate case would be, for example, in America, we shake hands when we greet each other. If you're going international to another country, you want to follow the host and make sure that you respect the proper greetings in that culture. And then finally, the host will introduce themselves. So an example would be, if I'm having a dinner and I'm the host, I will say, this is Gregory Hildrop. He is the state vice president representing the Germana region. This is Mrs. Martin. She is the Virginia FBLA state liaison. And my name is Sean Miller. I will be your host. I am the Virginia FBLA state reporter. And so it's going to go in that order. So onto the social aspect of the dinner. You should never clump up or seat cliques together or create cliques. You want to try and mix people up in general. That's the job of the host, is to sort of make everybody familiar with each other, get everybody to know each other. And so that's the job of the host. But even if you're not the host, you should be going around meeting other people on your own as well. When you enter your seat, you should always enter your seat from the left. And then when you exit your seat, you should exit to the right. And I would show you right now, but I am tied down by a wire here connecting me to my computer. Chivalry is not dead. Men may help a lady with her chair, although they shouldn't slide it under her. She can do that herself. For example, if I were to help Mrs. Martin with her chair, I would pull out the chair. Oh, let's see if I can do this. I'm able to do this. This is great. I would pull out the chair and she would sit down and then she can adjust it as necessary. And then I would go off to my place and I pull down and like I'm doing right now, I enter from the left and sit down. And I exited from the left, exited to the right, sorry. If you have brought a purse or a bag, you should set those either on the floor or in an empty chair. These items do not belong on the table. If you're doing work at the meal, at the dinner, you're able to take out a pen and your necessary papers and place it to one side of your place setting. We don't want to crowd other people or make a mess on the table. So you should just take out a pen or two and then only the necessary papers. Now, I'm sure you've heard this everywhere, but cell phones absolutely never belong at the table. If you are expecting a call, you should set your phone to silent or vibrate. And when you receive a call, you should excuse yourself to go outside, go to the foyer, or go to the restroom. It is rude to others attempting to have a pleasant dining experience if you're sitting there on the phone with somebody else. All right, and moving on to place setting. This is where you're going to want to try to enlarge my picture a little bit as I have some lovely little stuff here to show you. Many meetings will take place over a formal dinner. Some employers use these situations to evaluate potential employees. Or you may be invited to industry event or an awards dinner where a knowledge of dining etiquette will benefit you. So first off, you should have a total of about 1.5 feet of space in front of you at the table. And that's going to be what we're going to call the place setting. And all of your utensils and plates and glassware will be in that 1.5 feet of space. So first off, in the center is a space for your main plate. And that is number 7 on the, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. I hope you can. That is number 7 on the diagram here. To the right of the main plate is going to be your cup and saucer. That's where the tea or the coffee is going to go. Above the cup and saucer are your glasses and stemware. It's 2 and 3 on this diagram here. Now, coming back to the plate, if you look to the left of your plate, there will be a smaller salad plate. And you're only going to see this smaller salad plate here, and this is number 9. You're only going to see this smaller salad plate here if the salad is served at the same time as your main course. And we'll get into the order of courses a little bit later on. Above the salad plate at number 4 and 5 is going to be your bread and butter plate. And we'll go into how you use that a little bit later as well. Now we're moving on to the utensils. The utensils are situated at your place setting for use in order from outside to inside or left to right. Forks are going to be on the left side of your dinner plate. The salad fork would be on the outside of your plate, and that is to indicate that you would use this first with your salad, hence the name. And so this is what a salad fork looks like. I have it right here. They're a little bit smaller. Sometimes the head of the fork is going to be a little bit wider. And I don't know if you can see this, but most salad forks, if not all of them, are going to have a little groove on the left stem of the fork. And I don't know if you can kind of see that there's a little groove in there. And that's to help you with your salad greens. And so this is the salad fork. This is the dining fork. So the salad fork's a little bit smaller there. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. The larger fork is going to be on the inside, and that is to be used with your main course. If you choose not to have a salad, however, you shouldn't use your salad for the next course. Just skip over it. And oftentimes your server, if they see that you have skipped that utensil or skipped that course, they will remove that utensil for you. So you shouldn't even have to worry about that. So onto knives and spoons. Those are going to be on the right side of your dinner plate. The spoons are on the outside of the knives, but they're still in order of use from outside to inside. A large spoon will be used for eating soup, and it's called the soup spoon. Get it? So here's a soup spoon right here. It's big. It's got about, it's about like mine right here is about half an inch deep, which is pretty deep, but that's good so you can get the soup in. And then on the inside, next to your soup spoon is going to be a bit of a smaller spoon, and that's called the teaspoon. Here's the teaspoon right here. You can see it's smaller and not as deep. And that's going to be used for your coffee or your tea in most cases. If you're using creamer or sugar and you want to stir it, that's what the teaspoon is going to be used for. You may also use that for dessert if there is not a separate dessert spoon out for you already. You may also have a multiple selection of knives. The knife on the far right is might be a smaller one that you can use for your salads. However, if you do not have a smaller salad knife, you are welcome to use the dinner knife to cut your salad greens. So you may see a funny shaped knife for use of serving with fish. And this is actually a picture of a fish knife here. You can tell it's kind of got an odd shape there. And that is used to cut through the bone. This is in more formal situations, so you won't see that all the time. And then you might also see a serrated knife, and that's going to be used if you plan to eat steak some point during the night, usually with the entree course. And I have a serrated knife here. You can see the grooves on the knife, and that is to help cut the tougher meat. And when you cut, and I might go into this a little bit later, when you cut, you don't do not saw your food. You just do one pullback, two pullback. At most nicer restaurants where the meals are going to be very well cooked, very professionally done, it will only take one or two cuts in order to get it. So you should never saw. Generally, all of your silverware is going to be placed in the presumed order of your meal. Your host or the restaurant that you're eating at is going to take care of that before you even sit down, so you don't have to worry about that. If, like I said before, if you skip any portions of the meal, you should skip using those utensils. You may find more utensils above your dinner plate. A fork or a spoon may be placed horizontally there, like you see in number 13 on the diagram. And these are for dessert. And I actually have a dessert fork right here. It is very tiny. This is the dinner fork. This is the dessert fork. The dessert fork is very tiny. And I'll go into a little bit more later about how you use the dessert fork. The host will be your cue on what utensil you should use. So if the host is using your salad fork, or their salad fork actually, not yours, you should also use your salad fork. Always follow the host. Like I said, you're going to hear that 1,000 times today. When in doubt about which utensil to use, you should work from the outside in towards your plate.
So now we're going to be moving on to something that sounds a little trivial and obvious, but sometimes napkin placement can be a little tricky. So traditionally they're placed to the left of your plate, but often at business conferences, napkins are decoratively placed into cups or wine glasses or placed in some other clever location. And sometimes you'll actually have it up on at the top of your plate. But that's easy to find. You want to study the place setting, and once you figure out what your territory or area is, you can easily decide which napkin is supposed to be yours. So, for example, if the napkin is in the coffee cup and you know the coffee cup is always to your right, then the napkin in the cup to your right is your napkin. The napkin should go in your lap after you've been seated, or when all the group members have been seated at your table. The host places his or her napkin in his or her lap. The server places your napkin in your lap, or if you're in banquet style, when you sit. You want to place the napkin on your lap with one fold toward your knees. Never take the napkin out to the side and shake it before placing it in your lap. In addition, the napkin is not meant to be tucked in at your neckline to protect your shirt or your tie. You never want to do that in a formal setting. And then it should not go back on the table until everyone is ready to leave the table. Napkins should be placed to the left side of your place setting when the meal is over. But if you have to get up, say, to answer a phone call after you excuse yourself or use the restroom, you want to put it on your seat. Leave it there until you get back, and then you put it back in your lap.
All right, and now on to the order of courses. So I'll go through, there's a little bit of different based on how formal the dining experience is going to be, and I'll go into that a little bit as we go along. So your first course is generally going to be a fruit or a seafood cocktail. And for that, you should use the cocktail fork. Now there's two different kinds. If you have a fruit cocktail for your first course, you're gonna have this tiny little fork. This is a fruit fork. It looks very different. I mean, it looks very similar to the dessert fork, but it is a little bit different. The fruit fork is a little bit lighter. It's a little bit longer, and it's a little bit flatter as well. And this is the fruit fork next to the dining fork, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. At more formal places, if you're having a seafood cocktail, you're going to use a cocktail fork that looks a little bit more like this. This in particular is an oyster fork. So if you're eating oysters or clams or mussels, that's the fork that you're going to be using there. Your second course is going to, in an informal setting, the second course will be the salad. And in an informal setting where the second course is like definitively the salad course, normally the server or the host will place the salad on a smaller plate on top of your entree plate. Instead of off to the side, but in a more formal setting, when you have your entree and your salad at the same time, it's going to be placed off to the side like the diagram showed in the other slide. For your salad course, you should use the salad fork. And like I said before, there may also be a salad knife, or you can use the dinner knife to cut your salad greens. The third course, and this again is in some more formal settings, the third course will be used for fish. And in more formal settings, there may be a different fork and knife for those. So you saw the fish knife earlier. This is what a fish knife and a fish fork look together. And the reason for the interesting shape and grooves is actually to cut through the bone. In very fancy, very formal restaurants, you have to cut through the bone of the fish. So just keep that in mind. That's why that looks like that. Dining is an art, and everything has a purpose. Your fourth course is going to be your entree or your meat course. And you should use your dinner fork and your dinner knife in this course. Lastly, if you're doing 5 courses, the last course is usually going to be the dessert course. And this is where you use your dessert fork or your dessert spoon. And like the diagram showed previously, usually your dessert utensils are going to be placed horizontally over the plate on your place setting, at the top of your place setting. Right before the dinner is going to be served to you, you want to move your dessert utensils to their proper settings on the left and right of your dinner plate.
And I believe we had a couple questions in the chat, and we'll answer those really quickly. So someone asked, if melons are served, would you have a melon spoon or do you use the fruit fork? And I think that would depend. If you have a melon spoon, I would use that. If you don't, then I would probably use the fruit fork.
In most cases, the host or the restaurant is going to know how they're serving this. So if they're serving it as like a whole melon or half a melon where you have to scoop it out yourself, they're going to provide you with a melon scoop. If they have it cut up for you, most of the time usually you're going to see it as like a fruit salad type thing where everything's already cut up for you. Then you would use the fruit fork But yeah, great question.
Yes. And then one more. What happens if you pick up the wrong utensil and start using it? Should you put it back down and get the correct one? And I would think that you would follow the host again, as we've said many times, and put that one down and start using the correct one. I would think that would be course of action for that. Sean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. That's an excellent question, absolutely. But yeah, exactly. Follow the host. I would suggest, for example, if you skip the salad course and you accidentally start using the salad fork with your entree, I would go ahead and call your server over and say, I would like this fork to be taken away, and then you can start using the proper fork. But yeah, like Gregory said, follow the host. That's excellent. All right.
Okay, so on to some common table items and some of the logistics of etiquette at the table. So some of the common items that you'll have at the table that will need to be passed around throughout the meal would be some lemon, butter, salad dressing if you'd like some more on your salad, salt and pepper, and sugar. Sugar probably for iced tea or something to that effect. The person that the common item is nearest to will start the passing. So say the bread was placed in front of you, you would pick it up, offer it to the person to your left first, and then pass it on to the right of you. You do not want to take bread. You want to take bread last. You don't want to. You want to offer it to everybody else before you take it yourself. And then if an item ends up going the wrong way or gets out of order, then let all the items go that one direction, even though it's wrong. So you don't want some items going to the left, some items going to the right. That just is going to create confusion and somebody having two or three items at one time, and you don't want that in a formal setting.
All right, on to the food. If you couldn't tell, this whole dining etiquette thing is kind of a passion of mine. So yeah, let's get on to the food. So first off, you're usually going to have bread. Bread comes in various shapes and sizes. Sometimes the bread will be served to you by the server or host, and they will place it on your bread and butter plate. Other times, the bread will be served in a basket sitting on the table, and somebody must start the pass, as Gregory was just saying in the last slide. Um, Normally, it's going to be the host that is sitting closest to most of the common items. But if you happen to be the person nearest the basket, you should be the one to start. So you should reach for the basket, fold back the linen to expose the bread, and then pass it to others, like Gregory said in the last slide. You should use your left hand to pass across the body. So you're accepting the bread here, and you pass across the body with your left hand to the next person. And if you're the one who's starting the pass, you should be the last person to actually take any bread. If the bread is offered to you by somebody else, you can accept the basket with your left hand, remove some bread, and then pass it along using the left hand again, like I said, across the body. When removing bread from the basket, it is important that you do not touch any of the other pieces of bread except for the ones that you're going to remove and eat. If the bread is partially cut, for example, sometimes you'll be given a whole loaf and it'll just be cut most of the way, but not all of the way. You should use the linen in your hand to hold the remaining loaf as you tear away the portion that you would like to take. Bread should be placed on the bread and butter plate. However, if there is no bread and butter plate available, you can place the bread on the edge of your dinner plate, not the center. Eating the bread involves even more rules, if you can believe it, actually. If you are wanting to use butter for the bread, it is considered polite to put a usable lump or pat of butter on the bread and butter plate. You should never butter your own bread directly from the butter dish. I don't have this problem because I can't eat butter with my bread. So, but for you guys, bread is to be broken one piece at a time, buttered one piece at a time, and eaten one piece at a time. So you should tear off a bite-sized piece of bread, butter it again from your bread and butter plate, not from the butter dish directly, and then eat it. And be sure that you only take pieces of the bread to your mouth that will not be returned to the plate. So that's just a general rule of thumb throughout the whole meal. If it comes up to your mouth, it goes in your mouth. It does not go back on your plate. Never butter the entire slice of bread and take bites from the whole slice of bread. Like we said, it should be broken one piece at a time, buttered one piece at a time, and eaten one piece at a time.
Now on to the second course, the salad course. Use your salad fork and your dinner knife if you're not provided a salad knife to eat your salad. You may ask for the salad dressing to be passed to you if you'd like some more than was provided to you. And if you don't eat salad, you most certainly do not have to. But don't make up any excuses. So say something like, I don't care for salad today, or I would not like salad with my meal today, something like that. And then if you use the dinner knife, place it at the top of your salad plate with the blade toward you for rest. And the fork should be placed at the 410 or 511 position for rest. So once you're finished eating your salad, you want to, or if you want to stop eating for a second, you place your fork at the 510 or 410 or 511 spot, and the knife would be like parallel to the end of the table in front of you.
And when we say 410 and 511, that's as if your plate were a clock. So where the 5 o'clock and 11 o'clock position would be, and where the 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock position would be. So just to clarify that real quick. All right, now we get onto the entree. The host should be the first one to start eating. Like we keep saying before, always follow the host. In restaurants, you should wait for everyone at the table to be served prior to you starting to eat. Maintaining correct posture while you eat is a sign of good manners. If you slump over your meal, you do not project a good image. You should now to the demonstration part, where I will once again be pretending to eat food for your enjoyment. So, and information. You should always bring the food to your mouth. Do not take your mouth to the food. So what I mean is, like, if you take a bite-sized piece of food, bring it to your mouth. Do not slump over your plate to eat it. That's a no-no. If you are eating soup, the proper way to eat soup in the American dining style, there are a bunch of different dining styles, but the one we're talking about today is American dining style. If you are eating soup, you take your soup spoon and your bowl is going to be on the table. You should never lift it up, but I'm just trying to show you what it looks like so you can see. You're going to travel in sort of like a circular motion. So you're going to dip the spoon into your soup, but away from you. So you can see I'm going away from me. So you dip your soup away from you, bring it up to your mouth and tip it. Avoid sipping the soup noisily. If you pause while you're eating soup, you should put the spoon on the plate under the bowl. Don't rest it in the bowl, put it on the plate under the bowl. And that's just to make sure if you accidentally if you accidentally bump the spoon, you're not going to get any soup or food on you or other people. When you get to the bottom of the bowl, use your opposite hand or your left hand to tip the bowl slightly away from you so that the rest of the soup kind of congregates away from you, and then continue to use the proper, scooping away up to your mouth and tipping it in. And you should never pick up your bowl and drink from it. If you've ever seen Beauty and the Beast, that's a big no-no. We don't do that. Next up, do not put your elbows on the table while you are eating. Normally, it differs based on, where you are. Again, always follow the host. Sometimes it is all right to put your elbows on the table when you're not eating. Watch your host or watch other people in the eating environment and follow them. Sometimes people will take an elbow break at the end of a meal. And so, like we just said, watch your host. They're the ones you should follow. American dining style eating dictates that you eat your food with the fork in your right hand. So here's another demonstration. If you have to cut your food, you should shift the fork from your right hand to your left hand and cut the food with the knife in your right hand, kind of like this. And you want to cut it into a couple bite-sized pieces at a time so you're not constantly switching back and forth. Once you cut it into a couple bite-sized pieces, you set your knife down, just how Gregory described in the previous slide. And You then shift your fork from your left hand back to your right hand, and then you can continue eating. Like we said before, make sure you bring the food in small bite-sized portions up to your mouth, not the other way around. Never, never talk with your mouth full, and you should always eat with your mouth closed. These are respectful. If you eat with your mouth open, that's kind of disgusting, and you don't want to do that in front of other people, especially. Now, if you pause while you're eating, you should never hook the fork over the edge of the plate. And what do we mean by that? Well, you shouldn't have the fork hanging this far out off your place setting. What you want to do is you just want to set the plate, you want to set the fork on the plate like so. And you can do the same thing with the knife. The knife should not be pointing out, it should be pointing in towards you and towards your food.
Now, moving on to probably everybody's favorite course of the meal, we'll be talking about dessert. So, once dessert is served, you want to move the dessert fork to the left and move the dessert spoon to the right. So, in their natural position where you'd normally have your dinner fork on the left and your dinner spoon on the right. Um, then you want to move your coffee cup into the drink position, so kind of where your glass of iced tea or something was in a previous course. You want to move your coffee cup from kind of over more to your right, maybe to a more like a diagonal position up to your right. And then also in a formal dining situation, do not toast unless you have permission to do so, or again, follow the host. That will always be your guide. That is probably the one thing that you will take away from this workshop, if you get nothing else out of this, is follow the host.
All right, now we're going to play a game of what do you do and what do you not do. So the first situation is if there's food caught in your teeth, never, never use your finger to pick your teeth, especially at the table. That is a big no-no. If you notice that there's food in your teeth, or if somebody says, hey, you have food in your teeth, just politely excuse yourself from the table and go to the restroom. And oftentimes, especially at fancier places where businesses is being conducted, you'll be able to find toothpicks either in the restroom or at the host's table. If your fingers get food on them, you should never lick your fingers or suck your fingers. Just use your napkin. And if you spill any food or drink, you can use your napkin as well. And if it's a more serious spill or mess, call for your server and they will be able to clean it up for you. If you drop a fork or another utensil, you should only pick it up if it's easy to do so. So if it's, right next to you, you can lean over and pick it up. It's fine as long as you're not getting in the space of the person next to you. But if it goes under the table, if it goes under another person's chair, just leave it alone and ask your server or your host to get you another fork and just say, excuse me, we need another fork over here. If the menu has no prices, and this is going to be at fancier places or banquets or weddings, stuff like that, if the menu has no prices, you should ask your host for suggestions. That's just polite. The host is going to know what is on the menu and what is good and what they would suggest. Secondly, you should never experiment with the menu items on another person's dollar. That means if you don't know if you're going to like it or not, don't order it. That becomes rude to the person who is paying for the meal. And another thing to add on top of that is you should never order the most expensive meal on there. If they say that they're going to pay for it, don't order a filet mignon that costs $42, but it's only 4 ounces of meat. Like, just don't do that. That's something you should do on your own if you're paying for yourself, not on somebody else's. So make sure if somebody else is paying for you that you get something that you know you're going to like and it's reasonably priced. Never argue about who pays. If somebody offers to pay, let them pay. They're well aware that they are paying for their meal and you don't have to argue about, oh no, I can do it. No, seriously, it's fine. Just, it's polite to let the person pay if they offer to pay. And that leads into the last point, which is don't complain publicly. I'm sure we've all seen videos of customers freaking out because they have a hair in their salad, and that is not the appropriate way to act. So if you notice something's wrong with your meal or something's wrong with your drink, just politely ask your host or your server slash the manager of the restaurant if they could come over and just sort of privately whisper into their ear and tell them what's wrong. You don't want to make a whole show about it. And you don't want to let other people at the table know that there's a problem as well. In most cases, they will be willing to fix the meal with little to no resistance. And so that concludes our presentation today. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you learned a lot, and this is a skill that you're going to be using all throughout your life. And so if anybody has any questions, now is the time to put them in the chat. We would love to answer them. We would love to hear from you. If you have not been to any of the other trainings, we definitely recommend that you go onto our YouTube page, and you can find that by just Googling Virginia FBLA YouTube or going to YouTube and typing in Virginia FBLA. We should be the first channel to pop up. And I'm going to go ahead. I see one question, I think. Oh, never mind. Roxana just says, awesome job. And I say thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Great, awesome. I'm so glad.
I have a real quick one. When you're done with the whole meal, if you have silverware left that you didn't use, you just leave it right where it is, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's the job of the server or the host to clean up anything that you don't use, or anything that you do use, actually. The proper way when you're finished eating, the proper way to let the server or the host know that you're finished eating is placing your knife and your fork on your plate like so, sort of, and so that the handles are facing you. Can you see that okay? All right. And like Gregory said before, you would place the napkin beside the plate on the left of the plate. And that's to let the server know that you are completely done. You're ready for him to take away all of your plates and utensils and glassware. And if you happen to, not use it, like if you don't eat salad and you have the salad fork left on your table, most of the time the server or the host will know to pick it up because you haven't used it, especially if we've already moved on to another course. So great question. Thank you.
And if they forget to clear it, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
And if they were to forget to clear it, you may always ask when the next course is finished, may you please, clear this salad fork that's left, and they'll be more than happy to do that. That's the kind of thing.
Okay, I just wondered in a restaurant that maybe isn't quite so formal, if it's more like a family style restaurant, if you are passing the food to the right, just like you mentioned with the bread earlier, you wait until it comes all the way back around to take your own, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yep. Great questions.
Great.
And in all cases, you should always follow the host. So if it is in a more informal, a more informal restaurant like a family dining area, just continue to follow the host. If they start passing to the left instead of the right, then you should continue to pass to the left, and everything should go to the left then. Like we said, follow the host, but also maintain continuity.
Either the host, or if there's not a formal host, follow the most senior member at the table would be the best recommendation for that.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'm going to stop the recording here. If I figure out, oh, there we go. Okay.